The astrology of October 2025 brings us into the realms after eclipse season, where fire and air lunations wax and wane, a Mercury pre-shadow begins, Neptune re-enters Pisces, and grand water trines ask us to integrate our emotions. Now, my friends, at the time of recording this video, September 18th, I do not know if anything else wild happened in the world. So please forgive me as we cruise through this October forecast if there are some things I don't refer to that might have happened in the news cycle. And I never begin videos saying things like this, but as many of us know, this past eclipse season, the eclipse season that is actually still in effect until the full moon in Aries, October 7th, we have been seeing the unfoldment of very specific events tied to these very powerful eclipse moments. Now, I don't know how much I'm going to retouch on involving some of the things that have been going on in the world, because many of you know I am not someone who goes deep into politics or any of that kind of stuff, but I am not afraid to talk about that stuff. And I am not afraid to get the hate comments, even though I don't get many hate comments. I'll be honest. So many comments are lovely and supportive. And all of you know I am raw and real, and I will tell you exactly what's on my mind. But it is not my intention to stir the pot, and it is not my intention to constantly talk about that stuff. But I am here as an astro weatherman, as some kind of mystical guide, if you will, and to do my best to share with you like what is happening. And this October is the post-eclipse season hangover integration. And honestly, as we get deeper into the fall, there is a lot of grand water trine action that will be going down, especially towards the end of October into November, December, and maybe even a little bit into January. Maybe when it comes to Venus getting into Scorpio, but Scorpio is a massive player involving upcoming transits. And that is where Mercury and Mars will be the first to start trining the late degrees of Pisces, where Neptune is freshly re-ingressed. You know, as we get into the middle of October, Saturn has already been in Pisces, and then Jupiter, of course, has been transiting in Cancer. And when we have Mars and Mercury get to those late degrees of Scorpio, we will begin having powerful grand water trines to the Cancer part of your life, whatever house topic theme of life Cancer is for you, and of course, wherever Pisces is for you. And that is where we've been having one round of eclipse stories play out in our lives. And then before we know it, the sun will dive deeper into Scorpio, as we all know, as the sun cruises through Scorpio into early to mid November. And then the sun will start activating grand water trines to the late degrees of Pisces, and of course, Jupiter still in Cancer. Now, Mars entered Cancer right after the solar eclipse in Virgo. Okay. And like I said, I'm recording this on September 18th, so that has not happened yet, but I just want to again preface that a lot of the things that I may mention in this video, I have no idea what else popped off with Mars squaring Pluto and the eclipse stuff, you know, but Mars, the day after the eclipse enters, and by the time maybe you're watching this video, has already entered Scorpio and making that powerful square to Pluto. So please leave your comments on anything that you did experience with that transit. And I'll be sure to comment back and let you know how I maybe experienced that. But that's going to be the first personal planet to really activate the scorpionic in our lives and in the collective energies. Then October 6th, Mercury will enter Scorpio. Okay. And that will begin a massive moment in the sky where two personal planets that very much have been activating a ton in our lives, especially in Libra. I mean, do you remember when Mars entered Libra and created that grand air trine and also that kite formation with the opposition to Saturn and Neptune before Saturn entered Pisces? That was a huge moment. At the time of recording this video, September 18th, Mercury is, I believe right now, just entered Libra, activating oppositions to Neptune and Aries, which again, we were beginning to see, again, depending on when you're watching this video, we are beginning to see censorship. We are beginning to see more twisted narratives on the world stage, involving communication, involving things such as what is hate speech, freedom of speech, okay, the twisting of words, the battle and war behind language and speech, what is okay to say, what is not okay to say. Now, what comes of these stories that are breaking right now in real time, September 18th, I do not know where they will evolve to. But by October 6th, we will have Mercury enter Scorpio, and that will begin the Scorpio transits leading up to those grand water trines, right? Towards the end of October, where now Mercury will be co-present with Mars, okay? And Mars is home in Scorpio. In ancient astrology, Mars rules Scorpio. So Mercury and Mars will be transiting for a majority, almost all of October, together in Scorpio. Now, as many of you also know, these monthlies aren't my detailed deep dives into the transits that are happening this month. Like the lunations, for example, we do touch on this stuff very briefly, but many of you know, as we cruise through the rest of the month, I make very detailed videos for each of the transits we're going to be talking about today. Now, I'm going to run down all the transits that are happening in October, and then I'm going to just talk about 3 maybe big ones, and probably just the lunations like I always do, because you know I like to bring in what Decan the full moon and new moon are falling in, the tarot card symbolism attached to that, those lunation cycles. And then I think I'm going to really dominantly touch on Neptune going back into Pisces. And then again, just sort of testing the waters and diving deep intuitively into what I feel these grand water trines might bring us as the fall and early winter come. Also, Mercury is going to enter pre-shadow on the day of the new moon, October 21st. Now, this is also important because Mercury will activate the grand water trine stuff with Mars as we get late into October. Then Mercury will enter Sagittarius, and on November 10th, Mercury will go retrograde. So Mercury starts a pre-shadow October 21st, my friends. Okay. And then on November 10th, Mercury will station retrograde and go all the way back to the degree where Mercury was at October 21st. I do have the exact degrees in my notes, but again, if I don't totally nail down the specifics of a lot of the stuff we talk about today, guys, stay tuned for all of my other big videos that I put out. I mean, you know that I dive deep later in the month as the month unfolds. But yeah, let's just cruise through. Let's just get started, guys. And again, like I said earlier, October 6th, Mercury enters Scorpio. October 6th and 7th, depending on where you are in the world, we have a full moon in Aries at 14 degrees. This will fall in the second decan, okay, ruled by the sun. And we will talk about the tarot card symbolism in a little bit later. We have on October 14th, Venus entering Libra. So all the personal planets are switching signs, right? Mars is already in Scorpio by the time the month starts. Mercury enters Scorpio on October 6th, literally right as the full moon is, right as the full moon is about to happen. And then on October 14th, Venus enters Libra. So again, those are 3 personal planets changing signs, activating massive vibe shifts. But Libra is, again, kind of a big deal for Venus. Venus rules Libra, obviously, but all the personal planets have been activating Libra in a really, really big way in the last couple of months. And of course, the opposition to Neptune is going to still be there because Neptune doesn't flip back into Pisces until October 22nd. So when Venus enters Libra, it will have an opposition to Neptune and Aries, and that will be something we have to talk about at another time. And again, based upon what's going on in the world right now and what Neptune and Aries has always brought, world events, involving maybe civil war energy type of deal, or again, this very powerful battle and clashing, the very Aries nature of what the Neptunian can provide us all. And again, just in the collective sense, we're dealing with the powerful visions of the future, what people want to birth into existence. Aries is all about taking charge and initiative and really taking action on things, being very assertive. And again, all of the maybe even shadow aspects of what Mars can represent, we are dealing with the Neptunian in that realm. Okay. And everybody's trying to dream a new version of their ideology or their beliefs into being, and their visions into being. And Venus going opposite that will be very interesting to talk about, because Venus rules Libra, right? So maybe this is a breath of fresh air. Maybe this could be something that can provide to be a little bit, maybe there could be a little bit of medicine involved in that moment as October comes into focus. So again, I know it's hard for a lot of us to imagine that things could get better with a lot of the shit that we're seeing go on in the world, you know? And again, I'm not saying that from one side of the aisle or another. I mean, we all have to admit that we just live in a time of chaos. And I think this chaos is very much needed in order for there to be change. And that is just part of the human story from day one, okay? Back to our ancient ancestors, this stuff has been playing out the same. You know, we really aren't that evolved if you actually think about it. We just live in a very fast-paced time with technology just consuming us at a level that is so unimaginable, and in a time where we just have such ideological clashes. So again, hopefully Venus going opposite Neptune will provide some kind of ease, you know, and hopefully we can all imagine a world where things get better. Okay. I think that's very important for us to note here. October 21st, we have a new moon in Libra. Okay, at 28 degrees. This will fall on the third decan ruled by Jupiter. And we will talk about the Tarot card association in a bit when it comes to that. This is also when Mars and Mercury have a conjunction in Scorpio, and when the Mercury pre-shadow begins. So guys, the October 21st new moon is jam-packed. And again, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to cover in this video on that, but I will do my best just to sort of break down what I feel is necessary for this initial overview for the month. But this is really big. And again, we're having another new moon at the late degrees. So again, that new moon solar eclipse in Virgo was at the 29th anaretic degree. Having one at 28 degrees, it's not the last degree, but again, we are dealing with the very tail end degrees of a zodiac sign, which really does paint more of a picture of not only new beginnings, but also the understanding of endings, in my opinion, because we are getting towards those very late degrees before the sun will enter Scorpio the very next day, okay? Because this new moon is really happening like right on the cusp of 28, 29 degrees. And within 24 hours or less, the sun will go into Scorpio. So the sun really is preparing for launch to get into Scorpio season, which again will be very significant for Grand Water Trine territory. And I think, you know, the Grand Water Trine conversation will be probably a really big video going into the November forecast when I do that. But because those will be much bigger November stories for us to talk about. And I am hoping that things calm down just generally in our life and generally on the world stage. Like, I think maybe this could be a moment for things to just get so out of control and so wild that there has to be some kind of a calming, even if it's just for the winter, you know. I mean, we are having retrogrades back with Uranus into Taurus and of course Neptune back into Pisces, where we will be revisiting old energies that we had last winter into the early spring of 2025. And things, all things considered, were a little bit calmer. And I think a lot of us are going to be reviewing and reflecting, and the aggressiveness of the new future, if you will, isn't going to truly kickstart again until spring into summer 2026. So I am hopeful that things sort of maybe settle into place. And again, don't put my feet to the fire when it comes to world event stuff. Because guys, I mean, predicting stuff on the world stage is very, very hard. And I know that there will always be things that are difficult and hard and horrible happening, no matter who's in power, honestly. And this, yeah, I'm just reading the astrology for what it is. And I think the grand water trines will provide some kind of rest, integration, meditation, and the tarot card association with the Decan of this new moon, which we'll talk about in a moment, is very much all about resting and retreating and taking a moment to breathe and to, cool the fires, if you will. And these lunation cycles are really the signification and the signal, excuse me, if I could speak right, that eclipse season really is over. So there's always kind of the post-eclipse hangover and also that integration period. So these two lunations are also where last year's eclipses were falling as well. I mean, the last couple of years, right? We were having Aries eclipses and we were having Libra eclipses. And I forgot to mention as well, the full moon in Aries happening is the first lunation in Aries after like the serious, we had the last new moon in Aries, right? In the spring of 2025, late winter, early spring 2025 was the last solar eclipse in Aries that we had. So this is the full moon culmination of even that cycle in itself. Very important to note. But yeah, my friends, and then October 22nd, Neptune goes back into Pisces. Now, this is definitely going to take an entire video for me to really flesh through what this can mean for us. But I mean, I just like to always tell all of you, reflect on the last time Neptune was in Pisces, of course, and Neptune isn't really going to retrograde further back than 29, 28 degrees. I can't recall how far back it retrogrades, but it's really not going to go back as far as Saturn is. Saturn's going to retrograde back to 25 degrees and then go direct within a month or so. You know, Saturn is already ready to go direct pretty soon, you know, all things considered. So Neptune is really not going to go that far back into Pisces. It's really just going to be seriously hovering at that anaretic degree, which again, the anaretic degree is a very potent degree. And this means the strength of this reflection and this review and this deeper understanding of any illusions that might have been created over the last couple of months, or if there's anything that needs to be healed or reconsidered. Or again, I think for some people, this might be beautiful for healing and artistic growth and just reflecting on things that have been reimagined in the Pisces part of your life. What did the lunar eclipse in Pisces bring you recently? What did Saturn kind of sober you up to? And what is Neptune's influence going to be, involving maybe some of those stories before Saturn and Neptune re-enter Aries as the very early winter begins. And then that epic 0 degree conjunction Saturn and Neptune will happen on Valentine's Day. Hey, so yeah, there's that. And then lastly, guys, October 23rd, Scorpio season begins, right? So literally, like I said earlier, right after the new moon in Libra, the sun essentially enters Scorpio within a 24-hour period. So very early, depending on where you are in the world, late October 22nd or early October 23rd, Scorpio season begins. And this is when Mars and Mercury are very conjunct together still at the end of Scorpio, beginning those very powerful grand water trines to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and then also Jupiter in Cancer. And that's why I kept saying to you guys, okay, well, the late degrees of later in the month in October is really when we start to see what the soothing, typically grand water trines are beautiful. They're very emotional. They really get us in touch with something very deep. It could be very healing. It could be very cathartic. It can be very, but like, again, sometimes, the last time we had a massive grand water trine, I think we had that Hurricane Helene last year. So don't get it twisted. There could be events that pop off that allow for such healing to take place as well. So it's not like I want to talk about grand water trines like they're cherries, roses, ice creams, and, apple pie here. But I want to talk about them in a way where we don't know what that healing and that that overwhelming emotional liberation or something what this might manifest as, right? And we are talking about Scorpio energy still. So as much as I think this is going to be very beautiful and cathartic for many of us, I also think this can be very, a time where healing goes both ways. Like, what are we actually going to be healing? What are we actually going to be reconciling and understanding more deeply? And then, of course, I did mention, I think, in the October 21st commentary that I just provided with the new moon as well, Mercury begins a pre-shadow. So that is really, really significant, guys, because we're going to have Mercury enter Sagittarius in November, late October into November. We're going to have that Mercury retrograde happen on November 10th. And then we're going to begin a retrograde cycle back into the Scorpio part of our life. So the Sagittarius part of our life and the Scorpio part of our life are going to be very activated. And again, back to the grand water trine stuff, the Mercury is going to hit and pass over Sagittarius and Scorpio, activating grand water trine, mercurial communication, speech, language, dialogue, information, and somehow playing a role within those emotional trines happening. So again, all of this stuff we're going to have to track more deeply as the month unfolds. But yeah, my friends, like let's just continue on. Okay, I want to dive a little bit deeper, of course, into the full moon in Aries, the new moon in Libra, talk about the Decan and the tarot card symbolism, and just start getting our whistles wet around what some of this can be meaning, like what this stuff can mean for us, maybe what this can mean for the world. I really would prefer, though, to talk more about the world stuff as time unfolds a little bit more, as we get closer to these transits, because then if you want more of my juicy interpretations on stuff going on in the world, I need to get a little bit closer to observe what's actually going on in the world right now. On September 18th, it's very difficult for me to even gauge what's going to frickin' happen in a couple of days from now. And like I said, I don't even know if anything crazy happened still with the profected solar eclipse happening September 21st. So I'm going to do my best to just talk about these upcoming October transits so we can, try to get just a little bit more familiar with them as they arrive and as they come around the bend. But if you are enjoying this video, my friends, I would love if you could consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video. All that stuff really helps the channel's growth. So if you are new out there, I do hope you can consider joining and supporting my work here. And also, if you would like to learn anything else about myself, my friends, check out my description box below. Readings are kind of hard to find right now. I'm taking some time off in October to get my head around teaching my Decan's course that will begin in January. So there'll be more details on the Decan's course, my friends, but you can go to my website and read a little bit about it if you would like. And I'll have more information on all of that very, very soon. But October, I may have 1 or 2 slots left if you would like to book a reading with me. But November is going to open up in a big way. And I think you can already start booking readings with me for November if you would like to. So please get on the books. And if you would like to connect with me before the winter really, really gets here. And I would love to meet you and, of course, guide you and help you and talk to you literally about anything you would like to. And we will see what the astrology is unfolding for you. Now, that all being said, let's dive right back into the video. Okay, everyone. So let's talk about October 7th. This is when the full moon in Aries will happen. This is going to fall at 14 degrees. This will be in the second decan of Aries. This is ruled by the sun, okay? And the 3 of Wands in the tarot. Now, I think we had a pretty big solar eclipse. I'm not sure if it was the last one we had or if it was one that happened in April 2024. But we did have a solar eclipse here. I'm pretty certain. And the 3 of Wands, as we all know, is a card where we are discussing foresight, expansion, confident anticipation. So the 2 of Wands is really about the igniting of a vision. We are discussing conquering. We very much have our eyes set on something with the Two of Wands, and we want to go after it. This is why Saturn and Neptune in Aries right now in this first decan, when they're going to be in that first decan for some time. This is why we are seeing so much aggressive movement towards ideological impulses, and everybody's wanting their vision to be set in stone. We have a particular government in the United States that very much is pushing very, very hard to get their laws and their vision of America, for example, and the world, quite frankly, in a particular direction. So that very aggressive Two of Wands initiation of a vision is what the Two of Wands in that first decan of Aries is all about. But this second decan of Aries is more about, like I just said, this idea of foresight. This is the moment, not of calm, but where we are getting more integrated in our approach. It's almost like getting a little bit more strategic around something. It's about the anticipation now of what we will conquer or what we want to achieve. So in my opinion, think about the Aries part of your life, right? Think about what's going on there. Like what is unfolding in that Aries part of your life, whatever whole sign house theme of life that is. Because this full moon, I think, is going to reveal and illuminate something there. Of course, full moons always reveal something to us. And I think this is going to be part of the beginning integration phases of what we are going to experience and unfold and meditate on and integrate throughout the winter. So again, any decan ruled by the sun brings a radiance, brings a very powerful illumination that typically can be positive in nature. So I think in comparison to a Saturn ruled decan, where we are dealing more with a very concrete reality, committed, disciplined, and more serious type of energy, the sun is all about expression and illumination. So I feel this illuminating, this full moon opportunity here can be very important in our life, okay? So the emergence of a true identity, leadership turning into something that could ultimately become real and tangible at a later date, bold, calculated expansion. So again, we're getting a little bit more specific on what we want to expand into, and this is going to take time, right? I think by the time we get to maybe later in the winter, like I said, and even when Saturn and Neptune get back into Aries, this stuff that's been happening in Aries will become more and more clear for all of us. And this is why actually as well in readings, I keep telling all of my clients that feel like they're in between two worlds right now. I'm like, this is because there's so much retrograde motion happening back into signs, back into Pisces and Aries with Saturn and Neptune, and Uranus going back into Gemini even. We have a lot of retrograde activity that has already been in motion from the summer into late summer, into the fall. And this full moon in Aries, I think, because we've been having so many activations in Aries, and honestly, so many activations in Aries over the last couple of years, right? With so much going on there with the eclipses, blah, 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 all that stuff. And now we're having our first major full moon that closes off eclipse season that is in Aries, okay, of all zodiac signs after eclipse season, right? And we are going to kind of have this moment of like, okay, what is it exactly that I want to expand into? What am I getting clearer on right now? Okay, what have I gone through over the last couple of months, in fact, that now is being illuminated in some way, shape, or form? So, you know, we really want to ask ourselves deeper questions about what have even the eclipses revealed truths that you can no longer ignore? Like what has been revealed to you that you can no longer ignore? Okay, because this is the first big lunation after the eclipses. What new horizon is calling you, and what concrete step can move you forward? Okay, that Three of Wands. What can you do to move forward now? Okay, what concrete steps can you now begin to integrate and begin to understand? Okay. Now, in my upcoming full moon video that I do, which actually will be the next video, I think after this one, to be honest, we're going to dive deeper into this full moon. So I don't really want to talk more about it. Stay tuned for my next video I put out. It will be on this full moon, and I'm going to dive into some astrological magic. I'm going to dive into further commentary, just generally speaking, on all things Aries, all things Libra, in fact, and just so we could talk about the duality of where where the sun is. Of course, the sun is illuminating the Aries moon, and we'll talk about even some rituals that we can partake in that kind of help us post eclipse season. Because, like I told you, we never do talisman astrological magic work during eclipses, but now I think October could be a really beautiful time to get deeper into astrological magical practice, maybe even create some talismans, and really, depending on your needs, we'll explore that. Okay. Now, October 21st, the new moon in Libra will happen at 28 degrees. This will happen in the third decan. This decan is ruled by Jupiter, which I'm already very in favor of. Jupiter ruled decans are beautiful for expansion and for aspects of us integrating truth and wisdom. Okay, no matter where a Jupiter decan is, there is always something deeper and wiser and more expansive that usually provides us some medicine that we need. And this decan is ruled by the Four of Swords. Now, there was a big transit that happened, I think, over the winter or over the spring, where we had this decan get activated. Because I remember talking about the Four of Swords, my friends. I do remember talking about this. And as many of you know, the Four of Swords is it's a card that represents recuperation, retreat, silence, meditation. It is the card that has the knight, the gentleman, depending on what deck you're using, where he looks like he's dead, right? And he's sitting on this tomb looking thing, and he's in some kind of a chapel, because you can see the stained glass window up in the corner of the image. And it really, and to me, that honestly represents like, hey, there is a moment for sure now where we are taking a moment to rest, to recuperate, to retreat, to meditate, to contemplate. And this is the first new moon, right, after we had eclipse season. So this is the first major seeding that we are going to have. But again, that Four of Swords can be very symbolic for the setup to the strong water trines that will begin to happen. Okay, so I think this is a beautiful new moon to activate in Libra before Scorpio season literally begins the next day. I think this Jupiter ruled decan is going to provide us a seeding where we have the opportunity to very much expand and grow. I think our intuitive senses will be very activated, but also because we're dealing with Libra and an air sign, and because we're dealing with Libra as a whole, which is really about balance, harmony, and mediating and trying our best to seed something here right now in this new moon cycle where harmony and balance hopefully can be part of this integration, this recuperation, this retreat, this silence. But at the same time, I'm not trying to go into negative Nancy land, but I'm wondering if something might happen in the world that forces us into retreat, that forces us into silence, and I really hope that nothing too bad happens on the world stage that would make that happen. But we are seeing so much activation with Libra that is trying its best to bring balance to the world, but at the same time, we are in one of the most unbalanced times in recent memory. Politically speaking, of course, culturally speaking, of course. And I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, there is a war of balance that is completely out of balance. So I think in our own life, our own lives are not what's going on in the world, okay? We can be affected so easily by everything in the world, sure. But so many of us have actually been doing the work over the years. And actually, a lot of these transits are proving to be quite revelatory, miraculous for some people. And I want to always share with you that life will always get better. Life can always get better if we still have a breath in us. And I think we have to look at any challenge or any opportunity within a transit as a moment for growing and learning something. And I think that this new moon could be a moment where we are planting some very, very powerful seeds in the ground for the Libra part of our lives. Okay, so we really need to reflect on the Libra part of our life, of course. We need to even begin to start tracking Mercury now. Okay, because again, what else is happening on this new moon, my friends? We are having not only a Mercury and Mars conjunction in Scorpio, but we are also beginning the Mercury pre-shadow. So I'm not saying that this new moon in Libra will have anything to do with the Mercury pre-shadow, because obviously Scorpio is doing its own thing right now. I would say if Venus was in Scorpio, that would be something to watch, but Venus is not in Scorpio. Venus is actually in Libra during the time of this new moon. So Venus will be home in her home sign, hopefully providing that support to the seeds that can be planted, to some of the things that we are experiencing in the Libra part of our life, and maybe some of the things we have experienced recently in that Libra theme of life in our charts. And please share with me anything you would like involving things going on in your life with anything that I'm talking about in this video. You know, I read all of your comments and love to see the support from other people. But I actually, you know, that's something, I mean, I didn't forget about it, obviously, but I just didn't mention it yet in the commentary right now. But Venus is home in Libra during this new moon cycle. And we're dealing with the late degrees, of course, of Libra for this new moon. And to me, that is signifying there's a closing of a chapter, you know, like in a way, because the sun is literally preparing for launch, like I said in the beginning of this video, into Scorpio, literally within 24 hours later. And this new moon, I think, could be also concluding some stories that are no longer needed in the Libra part of our life, you know? And again, this is a post-eclipse reset. The first clean slate, the first new moon happening in the sky since the Virgo solar eclipse. So this definitely invites us to reflect on what even the eclipses represented, okay, just as a whole, okay? There could be even some questions that need to get answered around relationship patterns, power imbalances, and the balance between self and other, okay? Because Aries has been so very activated by so many transits flying through Libra in recent months. And this new moon can be maybe a powerful renewal moment to kind of wash some slates clean. Okay, so again, when I get to the new moon video towards the end of October, we will talk more about astrological magic. We will talk more about things we can do to remediate and help some of the things that we might have experienced in the Libra stories. But just generally speaking, I always want to begin now offering astrological magic guidance and things we can do, talisman making potentially. So we'll talk about that. Planetary hours that could be useful. So yeah, we'll talk more about that later in the month, my friends. And yeah, we already just sort of touched on the Mars-Mercury conjunction in Scorpio. So we'll talk about that at a later date as well, my friends. I really want to save a lot of these juicy transits for when we get there later in October. The Mercury pre-shadow, you know, again, something else I want to talk about later in the month. And because we're going to be dealing with the beginning. Because I don't want to say the new moon in Libra has something to do with the Mercury pre-shadow. I don't want to say that. I want to say that the Scorpio stories are going to tie more deeply into what this Mercury retrograde is going to be about. And the Sagittarius part of your life, which we'll talk about later in October into November, because we haven't really talked about Sagittarius in a while, I don't think. And we did have a Mercury retrograde last winter in Sagittarius, of course. And this is going to be interesting because of the grand water trine stuff. So yeah, my friends, we'll talk about that at a later date, of course. Now, Neptune going back into Pisces literally the next day after this new moon in Libra, we will have discussions around Neptune re-entering its own waters, Saturn and Pisces alongside Neptune. Okay, Saturn restructuring and bringing sober realities back into our life, into things that we experienced in the Pisces transit over the last 3 years. Over the last year, though, more specifically, because that is only how far Saturn will have retrograded back to, 25 degrees. Neptune comes back in. We are talking about the reimagining of maybe some things that Saturn now has been getting us sober on. We are maybe even discussing things about the reflection and renewals of boundaries and discernment around things. Okay, so Saturn and Neptune are going to be dancing once again. They're very close together when Neptune re-enters Pisces. And I think that this is going to be just a powerful reflection and a powerful review and a powerful reminder of what Neptune is capable of in its home sign. As far as modern astrological rulership, Neptune rules Pisces in modern astrology, Jupiter in ancient astrology. So the Jupiter transit in Cancer, technically speaking, in my book, as someone who practices ancient astrology, is huge for so many things that have been going on in Pisces, pretty much for anything that has ever transited through Pisces in recent memory, and especially for the Neptune-Saturn conjunction and what these two planets have represented in Pisces. So we're having a couple of months where Saturn and Neptune are simultaneously restructuring, reordering, rebranding, asking us to recommit, to reconsider what we want to build, what we want to get serious with. What do we need to heal? Okay, what do you need to revisit and release? Is there any artistic parts of you out there, or any of you getting creative in that Pisces part of your life? I have Pisces in the 5th house, and I could tell you right now, I could already feel that there's a whole new creative Joe coming online as far as even the way I want to produce content in the future. I was recently a guest on Lawless Astrology. So, hey, Dabney, if you're watching, and definitely go watch that interview and that collaboration I did. That was the first time I ever really decided to go on someone else's channel. And part of me is considering now bringing people on my channel and having chit chats with people every so often. Okay, I actually have somebody coming on in October. Okay, and I'll leave the surprise of who that is when it comes. And then I also have somebody really, really well known that the world really knows. Actually, he's quite famous. Is going to be coming on, I think, on the channel in December into January. Trying to figure out a date right now. Someone who I've been kind of friends with for about a year, and he's not an astrologer, by the way. He's in another mystical art field, but very well known around the world. And I'm thinking, like, wow, okay. Like Saturn and Neptune in my 5th house I think this could be like the beginning of me reimagining and getting more creative and more expansive in my visions of my house of creative energy, the 5th house. Okay, where self-expression and being creative there has always been a part of my story. So this is definitely a reflection, a review on things and reconsidering things and restructuring and rebranding things and getting very visionary potentially, okay? We have to be careful of the illusions and the disillusionment that can also be present. And that's something that I have been saying all eclipse season, like, hey, is there anything that you are delusional to right now? Is there anything that you have been kind of putting yourself in false loops of when it comes to what is actually real, and how do we get sober on those things? And I think the eclipses already maybe provided us some of that sobriety. On the world stage, I cannot begin to delineate what a Saturn back into Pisces ingress might bring us. But again, I think this also can be the beginning of the grand water trine stories that include Neptune, of course, right? So as soon as Neptune re-enters Pisces, this is when the Mercury-Mars conjunction in Scorpio will begin to start trining those late degrees of Pisces, Saturn, and Neptune, and also Jupiter. So again, I think because Jupiter classically rules Pisces as well, this is why I'm really feeling that this is kind of the calming down. This is kind of us getting a little more emotional and finding deeper truths within ourselves or deeper aspects of ourselves that can help us move forward throughout the winter. And I'm not saying this winter is going to be easy, guys. And again, I'm here for you to do readings for you as November and December and beyond open up, because again, October, I'm taking some time off, but I'm here for you to talk through some of this stuff. I'm not saying the winter's going to be easy. I'm not even saying the next couple of years are going to be totally easy, because the world is going through a rebirth and a possible simultaneous destruction at the same time. And I'm not saying that in some kind of nuclear holocaust type of way, but I'm saying that in a way where we are literally shifting gears into a new dimension of what humanity is all about. So of course there's political upheaval. Of course there's cultural upheaval. Of course there is history repeating itself in many ways, especially when we look back in history of where these outer planets once were some time ago. So again, I'm not saying things are going to be easy, but what I'm saying is things are going to get truthful and real, and we're going to get more sober, hopefully, as people. Okay. And we have to remember the age of Pluto in Aquarius as well. This is where the people rise to fight against the industrialized takeover by darker forces. Okay. And I'm not talking one side of the aisle politically either. I'm just saying Pluto in Aquarius wants to powerfully transform systems and, again, collective matters in a big way, institutions, things like that. But also there is an aspect of rebellion, and there is an aspect of very powerful change that happens at a grassroots level. So in our own life, though, in the Aquarius parts of our lives, this is very powerful for again, just the utter and complete transformations we're undergoing, and how deeply and deeply unique and new this is. Okay. So we have to just be kind to ourselves, be, always in a continuous stage of learning. This is never a better time to learn astrology. I hope through my courses over the next year can really help you guys expand your learning and stuff. And, but again, I think the grand water trines, just to conclude this video, I think this could be powerful medicine, powerful medicine. So we'll have to keep track of all this, and be sure to stay tuned with my work here. And if you're new to the channel, I hope you can consider subscribing. And yeah, that's all I have for you, my friends. Wishing you well, and I will see you in the next video.